They were only doing what they always did, gathering firewood, sleeping in their own beds, playing in the yard behind their own front door, and every one of them was already dead. They just didn't know it yet. Let's start with a man named Anthony Pasha. It was February 5th, 2024 in a forest bordering Nairobi National Park. This stretch of land sits on the edge of Kajiado County, Kenya, close enough to the park boundary that wild animals move through it the way traffic moves through an intersection. It was firewood season the way it always was. Anthony Pasha walked into the trees behind his own home, the same way he had 100 times before. Pasha wasn't a tourist and he wasn't a researcher. He was a local resident from a farming family that had worked this land for generations, doing a chore so ordinary it barely registered as a decision. Gather wood, come home. There was nothing remarkable about it, and that's exactly what makes what happened next so hard to sit with. Hyena sightings near Kajiado had been climbing for months before that evening. Livestock kills, night encounters on the roads, enough incidents that Kenya Wildlife Service had put out a public safety bulletin only weeks earlier, after a separate attack killed a 10-year-old boy in neighboring Kiambu County. The guidance was specific. If you're faced with a hyena, don't move away until it does. Keep facing its direction, be loud, look aggressive. None of that changed what Pasha did that evening. He'd made this exact walk enough times that the forest had stopped registering as a risk at all. I want to stop here for a second because this is the part people skip past. Pasha wasn't doing anything unusual or reckless in the normal sense. He was gathering wood behind his house. And that's exactly why this case matters. This wasn't carelessness. It was a man who had simply stopped being afraid of a place he'd walked through his entire life. There's a difference between fear and awareness, and it's a difference most people who live near wildlife their whole lives eventually lose without noticing. Fear fades fast. A few dozen uneventful trips and the nervous system stops flagging the walk as dangerous at all. Awareness is supposed to survive that fading. It's supposed to be the part of you that still checks the tree line even after fear has gone quiet. For Pasha, on this particular evening, it didn't. The animal responsible, the spotted hyena, crocuta, isn't the scavenger its reputation makes it out to be. Females run 40 to 55 kilograms, close to 40% larger than males, and they hunt in coordinated clans that can number a dozen animals or more working together. Their bite force has been measured above 100 pounds per square inch, the strongest relative bite force of any living mammal on record, strong enough to crack bone open for the marrow inside. A clan can move at close to 60 kilometers an hour, and when they're hunting as a group, they don't need to outrun a person. They only need to cut off the ways out. Spotted hyena clans are matriarchal, led by females, structured around a strict social hierarchy that stays intact, whether the clan is scavenging a carcass or actively hunting one down. When a clan hunts as a coordinated group rather than individually, its success rate climbs dramatically because the animals split roles. Some drive the target, others cut off the escape routes, and the group closes the gap from multiple directions at once. Quick thing before we keep going. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers on this channel. When we hit it, we're giving away a $100 Amazon gift card to one random subscriber. No entry form, no comment required, nothing to do except already be subscribed the moment we cross the mark. We'll reach out directly. Back to the story. It's the same cooperative structure that lets a clan take down prey many times the size of a single hyena. A lone man on foot at dusk, with no vehicle and no clear line back to open road, is not a difficult problem for a clan built to do exactly this. That's what happened to Pasha. The pack found him alone, on foot, with no clear route back to open ground. There wasn't one single moment of impact. There was a chase, then a pursuit deeper into the trees, then a group of animals that had already outnumbered and outpositioned him, before he ever got close to the road again. He never made it back. His cousin Kaji Legion later told reporters exactly where it ended. A stream bed not far from where Pasha had left his firewood, still stacked there, waiting to be carried home. The hyena came, it attacked him, chased him from the forest, put him down here, Lezian said. His relative Gladys Mengu put the aftermath as plainly as it can be put. We haven't found any part of the deceased. We have not been given any help. Cause of death was recorded as animal mauling consistent with a multi-hyena attack. Kenya Wildlife Service rangers responded that night, and the agency's Problem Animal Management Unit killed one hyena at the scene. Its body was tested afterward for rabies, a standard procedure anytime an animal attacks a person unprovoked, since an infected animal loses its normal caution around humans, and the same clan can go on to attack again within days if the underlying cause isn't identified and addressed. There's no footage of any of it. Nobody carries a camera to go collect firewood behind their own house. What exists instead is a stream, and a family that never got a full body back to bury. Pasha wasn't even the only person that pack went after that night. A university student a short distance away, 21-year-old Kevin Mwendwa, lost a thumb to the same animals a few hours later on a road bordering the same park. And a second man, Stephen Romo, was also badly hurt. Hundreds of students from the nearby university blocked the road in protest the next day, angry that a wild pack could reach this close to campus without warning. This wasn't an isolated flare-up either. Nairobi's urban edge has been pushing further into land that used to be a buffer zone around the park for years, and wildlife officials have said plainly that as the city grows outward, incidents like this one are becoming more frequent, not less. But the next case isn't about a pack running someone down in open ground. It's about a pack that came inside, through a door, into a bed, while a man was already asleep. It was November 2020, a Monday night in Chirumanzu district, central Zimbabwe. Inside a single-room mud and wood hut sat an 87-year-old man named Tendai Maseka, asleep, alone. Maseka lived by himself in that hut. No electricity to speak of, no neighbors close enough to hear much through walls built from mud. He'd spent decades on that same homestead. He wasn't traveling, he wasn't outdoors. He was in the one place a person is supposed to be safest of all, his own bed in a home he'd lived in most of his life. There's no decision to second guess in this case, no error in judgment to point to. The hyena pack active in the area had already been raiding cattle and goats for weeks before this happened. An escalation pattern wildlife officers would later describe directly. Livestock first, then something bigger. The failure wasn't Maseka's. It belonged to a system that hadn't caught up to a pack that had already learned livestock was easy, and was about to learn a mud wall wasn't much different. This is the detail that should unsettle you more than any story with a posted warning sign attached to it. There was no vehicle here, no gate, no fence line to have crossed. There was a door, and it didn't hold. Most of the cases people picture when they think about wildlife attacks involve someone stepping outside a boundary, leaving a marked trail, rolling down a car window, walking past a sign. Maseka never left anything. The boundary came to him, and once a hyena clan has learned that a structure this thin is breachable, that lesson doesn't reset itself. It gets applied to the next hut, and the one after that, until someone stops the pack responsible. A hyena clan working together doesn't need brute strength to get through a structure that thin. Mud and wood walls are built to keep out weather, not predators. They offer almost no resistance to an animal capable of over 100 pounds per square inch of bite force, and the patience to keep working at a weak point until it finally gives. The pack pulled Maseka directly from his bed and dragged him roughly 1 Zuzuazoran feet from the hut, the length of 3 football fields laid end to end, before villagers found what was left of him the next morning. By the time he was found, the lower half of his body was missing entirely. Not injured, gone. I want to sit with that phrase for a second, because it's easy to read past. A hyena's jaw isn't built to wound and retreat the way some predators are. It's built to consume completely on the spot, bone included. What villagers found the next morning wasn't a crime scene in the way people usually picture one. It was closer to an absence. Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority rangers began actively hunting the pack responsible in the days that followed, aiming to eliminate the animals before they attacked again. Wildlife officials pointed to something specific behind the timing, too. 2020's collapse in tourism revenue, the same year the whole world shut down, had drained the funding that normally supports anti-poaching and conservation enforcement, right as human hyena conflict in the region was climbing. Parks that usually relied on visitor income to fund fencing repairs, ranger patrols, and predator monitoring were suddenly operating with almost none of it. At the exact moment packs displaced by drought and habitat pressure were pushing further into settled land, looking for easier food. Maseka's hut just happened to be in the path of that pressure. No footage exists of any of this. Nobody films the inside of their own hut before falling asleep for the night. Maseka died alone with no one close enough to hear it happen. The next case is the exact opposite. A crowd was standing right there when it started, and it still wasn't enough. Friday, December 27th, 2024. Early evening, Timbavati Private Nature Reserve, Limpopo Province, South Africa. A stretch of unfenced bushveld bordering Kruger National Park and dotted with private safari lodges that run right up against open wilderness. She was 3 years old, not a guest at the lodge, not on holiday. Her mother worked there, and the family lived on site the way lodge staff often do in a place like this. Home and workplace are the same patch of land, and that land doesn't have a fence around it the way a zoo or a city park would. There's no failure to name in this case, and that's exactly the point of including it. She was playing near the lodge the way any 3-year-old plays near home. If there's a mistake anywhere in this story, it belongs to the geography itself. A private reserve is wild habitat first and a residence second, no matter what the brochure says about it. I want to be honest about why this one is hard to write. There's no decision that could have gone differently here. No warning that went unheeded. That's not a failure in the story. That's the story. Every other case in this video has a moment you can point to. A door left thin, a walk taken too casually, a crowd that ran the wrong direction. This one doesn't have that moment. It has a 3-year-old and a stretch of grass outside her own house, and an animal that came through at the 1 hour of the day it's built to hunt in. Sometimes the story really is just proximity, with nothing else attached to it. Spotted hyenas are opportunistic and territorial, and small size reads to them the same way it reads to most predators built to hunt. An easier target, less risk, a faster resolution. A toddler doesn't register on the same threat calculus as an adult standing upright. And at dusk, the low-light hour hyenas are built to hunt in. That calculation only gets faster. The hyena approached the lodge grounds right at that hour, and the encounter ended within the reserve's own boundary, on the exact patch of land the family called home. Private reserves like Timbavati are built around a specific trade-off that most guests never think about twice. No internal fencing between the wildlife and the lodges means a better safari experience. Animals moving freely through the same land guests are staying on. For a tourist on a 2-night stay, that trade-off is a thrill. For a staff family living there year-round, raising a child on that same unfenced ground, it's a risk that never actually goes away, no matter how many seasons pass without incident. Reserve Warden Edwin Pierce didn't reach for careful policy language when reporters called him about it. He said simply, "Nature is sometimes cruel." A family that should have been ringing in the new year together buried a toddler instead. Timbavati Reserve Management confirmed the death and said they were assisting the lodge and the police with their investigation, though they declined to publicly name the specific lodge involved, out of respect for the family. There's no footage. Nobody points a camera at a 3-year-old playing outside her own front door. That case had no warning attached to it, nothing to point to. The next one is the opposite. 10 people ran directly toward the danger on purpose, trying to save somebody else, and it still cost a life. A Thursday in October 2023, Gamanorwa village, in the Chadzwa area of Zimbabwe's Manicaland province. Evening. The kind where a scream in the dark could mean almost anything, and almost everyone assumes the worst version isn't the true one. Charles Gamanorwa was a villager, one of a dozen or so people in Gamanorwa village that night. When the screaming started somewhere nearby, he didn't hesitate. He gathered with 10 of his neighbors and ran straight toward it. The failure here, if it can even be called that, was a misread, and an understandable one. The group thought they were running toward a hyena attacking livestock. The noise sounded like a cow was being attacked by a hyena. His brother Valerio said afterward, "We rushed to the scene thinking that we were going to rescue the cow. They ran in ready to save an animal. What they found instead were 2 men already down." This is the part of the story that flips the entire formula on its head. Every case up to this point has been about someone alone. Alone in the forest, alone in a hut, alone playing by a door. This one is about a crowd. And the crowd still wasn't enough. A hyena that's already engaged and injured 2 grown men doesn't retreat from a larger group the way most animals instinctively would. Clan hyenas are used to holding their ground against lions, and even against each other. Over a kill, a group of unarmed villagers arriving on the scene registers to an animal like that as competition to be driven off, not a threat serious enough to end the encounter on its own. A hyena defending a kill or fighting for its life doesn't read a crowd of 11 unarmed people the same way a person would. It reads bodies, movement, and distance. And in the dark, with adrenaline already running, none of that adds up to retreat as fast as anyone standing in that crowd needed it to. Noah Jambaya and Petros Machona were already on the ground, badly hurt, by the time the group reached them. The hyena broke off from its original targets and turned directly on Gamanorwa, knocking him down as the rest of the group scattered in every direction at once. His brother Valerio didn't run. He killed the hyena himself with his bare hands, trying to save him. He arrived close enough to end the animal's life. He was still too late by hours, not minutes. There's something worth sitting with in that detail. Valerio didn't win by being stronger than a wild predator. Nobody wins that fight on strength alone. He won because grief and rage can push a person past the point where fear normally stops them. And by the time he reached the animal, it had already spent everything it had on his brother. Charles Gamanorwa died from the injuries he sustained. Jambaya and Machona survived theirs, hospitalized with life-threatening wounds. There's no footage, a village homestead at night, 10 witnesses standing in the dark, and not a single phone recording any of it. Days later, a separate hyena incident injured 5 more people in nearby Makoni district. This wasn't one bad night. It was a pattern moving through the whole region. That was one hyena against a crowd of 11 people, and it still won. The last case on this list isn't even about an animal working with the pack. It's about a single rabid hyena that, over the course of 2 days, did something that sounds like it should have taken an entire clan to pull off. Dedza District, central Malawi, roughly 43 miles south of the capital, Lilongwe. The attack started on a Monday and didn't stop, village by village for 2 straight days. The victims weren't one family, one homestead, one unlucky household. They ranged from 5 years old to 65. Farmers, children, elders, whoever happened to be outside when the animal came through their part of the district. This wasn't a hunt for one meal and then silence afterward. Something was wrong with this hyena and it would not stop. There's no cognitive error to point to in this case. No single decision anyone made incorrectly. What makes this different from every other case on this list is that the hyena itself wasn't behaving like a hyena at all anymore. I need to correct something here before this case goes any further, because the honest version is stranger than the exaggerated one would have been. This wasn't a pack. This was one single animal. One hyena did all of this. Rabies attacks the brain directly, and in carnivores it frequently strips away the caution that normally keeps an animal like this from approaching a group of adult humans in broad daylight. An infected animal will attack repeatedly and indiscriminately, past the point where pain or resistance would normally end an encounter. The disease overrides the instinct for self-preservation entirely. Villagers tried to fight it off themselves first. Men armed with axes and knives cornered the hyena on the first night and couldn't kill it. It got away and kept attacking through the following day, moving between villages faster than word of it could travel ahead of it. One father, who never gave his name to reporters, described the last thing his 18-year-old son said to him. "He told me he was dying," the man said, "but there was nothing I could do to save him." Rabies is still endemic across large parts of rural Africa, and wildlife carrying it are responsible for a share of cases every year that rarely makes international headlines, unless the toll is large enough like this one. Most rabid animal encounters end with 1 or 2 victims before the animal is put down. This one didn't stop at 1 or 2, because nothing about how this hyena was behaving matched the pattern anyone in Dedza had seen before. By the time a police and wildlife ranger team finally tracked and shot the hyena on the second day, 9 people were dead and 15 more were injured. The animal's carcass was examined afterward and confirmed rabid. Hundreds of villagers, too frightened to go home, sheltered together at a local primary school until it was over. An entire community effectively displaced by one animal for 2 days in a district that had never dealt with anything close to this scale of attack before. There's no footage of any of it. This was a rural district responding to a spreading emergency in real time, not a documentary crew following a story. 9 deaths from one sick animal in 2 days, without a single other hyena involved. No pack needed at all, not that time. 5 cases, 5 different countries and provinces, and not one of the people in them did anything you could honestly call reckless. A man collecting firewood behind his own house, an old man asleep in his own bed, a toddler playing outside her mother's workplace, 10 neighbors running toward a scream to help someone else. A rural district that fought back the moment it understood what was happening, and still lost 9 people to a single infected animal. There's no single mistake running through all 5 of these. No fence climbed, no photo chased, no warning sign ignored. The thread connecting them is proximity, not carelessness. These weren't tourists standing too close for a picture. These were people who lived their entire lives inside hyena range, doing the most ordinary things a life requires. Walking home, sleeping, playing, helping a neighbor. On the one night it went wrong. Hyenas have a reputation problem, and it's worth naming directly. The laugh, the scavenger stereotype, the sense that they're the nature documentary's comic relief always circling a real predator's leftovers. Every case in this video argues the opposite. A coordinated clan working together doesn't need an ambush or a mistake to end in a death. It just needs a person, alone or in a crowd, standing in the one place the pack has already decided to be. Somewhere right now, in one of these same districts, someone is walking a path they've walked 100 times before, certain that nothing has ever gone wrong there yet.